There are calls for Australia's competition watchdog to look into petrol prices after new data revealed Brisbane has some of the highest petrol prices of any capital city in the country. Joining me live is NRMA spokesperson Peter Khoury. Good to see you again, Peter. So is there any reason why Brisbane's petrol prices are higher than every other capital city, excluding Canberra on average?
Hi, no, there isn't. These are artificially inflated prices. Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne in particular are the three cities that the NRMA is most concerned about because of the price cycles and the way those cycles have shifted in the last couple of years. And so now these price cycles which exist in these capital cities, they don't exist anywhere else on earth, by the way, but they do exist in our largest cities. And they are longer than they used to be, and as a result, motorists are now exposed to higher prices longer. And the effects of that has been pretty clear, Brisbane being a particular case in point, because 3 years ago, Brisbane was the fourth cheapest city in Australia, and now it's the second most expensive. And if we don't do something about this, next year's report and analysis, we fear, is going to just show the same results again.
Is there much of a spread between the capital cities?
Oh, there's a huge spread, and this is one of the things that's really alarming. So there's about a 15 cent, almost a 15 cent gap between Canberra and which is the most expensive city, and Perth, which is the cheapest, and similar for Brisbane, just under that for Brisbane. But a family in Brisbane is now spending upwards of $390 a year more on petrol than a family in Perth. And obviously that's great for Perth, but we all want to be more like Perth and less like Brisbane. Darwin's a really good example. So a couple of years ago, Darwin was the second most expensive city in Australia. Now it's the second cheapest. So we know things can be done to make this situation better. We are still in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and this is one area where we believe that sensible action from government can perhaps make a difference.
Peter, we used to have 7-day price cycles where in Sydney you would know to fill up on a Wednesday, but that doesn't seem to happen anymore. Why don't we get those cycles?
Well, it does in Perth, which is perhaps one of the reasons why it's top of the list for cheapest. So every Tuesday in Perth is the cheapest day of the week, and every Wednesday is the most expensive. We used to have something similar in the other big cities. I mean, I'm based in Sydney, and I remember back in the day it was similar. You had tight Tuesday, and everyone knew you fill up on a Tuesday. Well, now the cycles can last more than 2 months. So they've gone from a weekly cycle, they slowly stretched out, and we've just seen that continuation happening. And it's no coincidence that the longer the cycle, the better it is for the oil companies, and the worse off motorists will become. Because what happens in our price cycles is that prices go up very quickly, twice, sometimes 3 times the rate that they fall, and they fall very slowly. And what we've also noticed in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne in particular is they don't fall as far as, say, Perth and Adelaide, and they certainly go a lot higher than those cities. So the cycles are absolutely working against motorists in Australia, in our 3 biggest cities, and it's not just hurting family budgets. I mean, there's been a lot of talk now for the last 2 years about what it does to our economy and inflation as well.
So realistically, what would the ACCC do? Because there's not one company or person controlling petrol prices.
Yeah, look, I think this is a pretty clear-cut example of what can happen if we just shed a bit of light on these price cycles and in particular these cities. And so I don't think it would be unreasonable for motorists to say, look, this is no longer acceptable to us. The ACCC has investigating powers. They are responsible for competition. And we think that there is work to be done here to look at why these cycles have now stretched so long in the 3 biggest cities, why it's left motorists so exposed to much higher fuel prices. While they're at it, they may as well have a look at what's going on in Canberra as well, because Canberra is consistently the most expensive city in the country. But someone has to do something. We're heading into an election year. It's going to be a cost of living election, and this lands in the lap of the ACCC. The NRMA will keep doing its job, but at some point a governing body has to look into these cycles because it's hurting.
Peter, I've got 10 seconds, but where do you see petrol prices going in January, up or down?
Well, they should start to fall in the cities that have price cycles, only because they've been at the top of the cycles now for so long. So hopefully slow falls. Beyond January, who knows?
Okay, Peter Khoury, appreciate it. Thank you. Happy New Year.